our very first event, having MMA at the station, and how that kind of unfolded. So people that don't know how that kind of unfolded and how we got involved and how the sport basically evolved in like Vancouver and British Columbia. I think we just want to bring people's attention to like how things kind of unfolded from behind the scenes kind of perspective, as opposed to, you know, seeing the guys that are in the cage like fighting.
It's definitely different from when you see it from the stands than what happens behind the scenes, right?
It's completely different than what people see in the stands and what people would see on TV, because we're giving them like an insight as to like how the sport evolved. I think at the time, back in like 2009, there was an MMA ban in Vancouver. So there at the time there was no mixed martial arts allowed in Vancouver, in the city of Vancouver, because the city council didn't approve it and stuff. And there was places that you could go outside of the city, like North Vancouver or Coquitlam or Richmond even, but at the time people were just like dying to have an event in Vancouver, because this is where like a lot of people live primarily, right? And then I think right before we started our very first event, the city council approved that they were going to start a 2-year trial with mixed martial arts, and then that's when the sport started. And it wasn't just us that was like starting up mixed martial arts.
There was other companies.
There was a lot of other companies. There was a lot of names that were like kind of throwing their hat in the table. And I think some of them were like Honor Combat. Funny thing is, they actually had an office upstairs from this office right here. So at the time, it was kind of freaky that they had rented the space out right above us. And they were coincidence. I don't know. It was freaky at the time. Yeah, seeing that they were here above us. There was Seeing Red, the one that was at the Red Robinson Theater. And I think Micah Mood and Jerry Gianco, they've been doing this for like decades, right? So those guys have been doing.
Well, they're on our team now.
They're on our team, but at the time they were like our direct competition. But those guys have been doing it for years, right?
Yeah, they're old dogs in the sport, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So the very first event happened, right? MMA at the station. We were looking for a really great venue. That's one of the hardest things that we had to find, was a venue, and we were thinking of going huge. I think we were thinking about going to like the Agrodome or like something really big, because Bodog, I think at the time, was at the Rogers Arena or something, and that was like the biggest one that they've had in the city besides the UFC coming to Vancouver. And we were looking for a big venue, and it just happened to be the Rocky Mountaineer Station, which was like a huge place that they only did maybe like events, like parties and stuff. And we were holding like a private event, which was like a mixed martial arts event, and it was crazy, and it had never been heard of. And the thing is, like, you and me, we'd never met each other until the night that we like set up the cage. And like
it was at that. Wherever we went to set up the
Richmond Sports Club.
That's right. Yeah. We never met before that.
Yeah,
right?
Richmond Sports Club out in Richmond. So we were setting up the cage, and really it was just you, me, Jay, John, and Tony. I mean, the cage was already set up, and then we had to come out and put on those stickers, right? So we had a lot of sponsors before at the time, and we were doing like, we had to do everything like perfectly. We wanted to.
We wanted everything to be absolutely perfect.
Everything had to be done perfectly. We had to like peel the tape off exactly and make sure that it was on without any bubbles or anything.
Dude, that tap out sticker.
That thing took forever.
To this day, haunts me. I think we worked for 3 hours on putting that sticker.
There were so many bubbles in it, and the thing is, we didn't really know how to do anything right. Yeah. We were just totally new and totally learning the sport, and I think that was like one of our first exposures to like setting up the cage and being involved with it. And then
and it went on till, I remember we got like McDonald's. We have a picture of getting McDonald's at like what, 3-4 in the morning.
Yeah, we were up really late in the morning there, working on on that cage and trying to get everything right. And then people don't know is like that was just the start. I think what really set us apart was the the fighters.
Yeah.
And like doing those promotional videos for the fighters and getting them involved. I remember like the very first video that kind of took off was Achilles Extremadura and Andy Marinos. And at the time, there was one team, Team Denarius, which was Marcus Hicks' team.
Yeah.
And I think everybody like kind of hated them, right, at the time. But they were a group of fighters that would basically fight anybody.
They take fights.
They take fights, and they were also like good at playing the bad guys. So they would talk shit. They were like they were great at talking shit, right? They would whatever. You just say something like originally when we put the video of Achilles on, we had Achilles say a few things, and at the time he'd never really been interviewed on camera before.
Yeah, he was a kid, man. He must have been like what, 17, 18,
something like that, 17, 18 at the time, and we were putting him against like an old man basically.
Yeah.
He was fighting. I think Andy at the time was like 35, 36.
Yeah,
and first we interviewed Achilles and got him to do whatever he could do because I mean he had to sound confident and stuff, and then we put Andy Marinos up, and then we just said, look, Achilles said this, and he said, roll the camera. I got these two fists attached to
two bricks in this
bricks attached to the sticks. And then once we released that,
he said something about his mom or something, didn't he? Running with his mom or something.
I cannot remember, but I remember Andy being so animated and such a great personality that him and Achilles was like the perfect setting for getting the ball rolling.
Yeah,
and
by the standards of that day, I think that video went viral.
Yeah,
that video was just like going crazy all over the place.
I remember seeing a very small article on us in the province, or I think the Vancouver Sun or something afterwards, and that's kind of like what helped us out as well. Like we were doing something that nobody else was doing at the time, and we were like giving fighters the opportunity to
tell their stories,
or even just do what they're doing in like the big leagues down here, and like we are the minor leagues, but at the time we had the like big league goals, so we wanted to give fighters the opportunity to like.
Well, I think even from the get-go, we really wanted the fighters to not only learn and improve their craft of fighting, but also understand that they need to market themselves, understand that they need to get the attention to themselves, they need to sell tickets, and it's not, you can't just get in there and throw hands or roll around and win fights. You actually have to have the capability of marketing yourself, right? So I think the guys who've come up with us, like on that first card, we had Chris Day, for example, was on that card with us. I remember you guys went out to Toshido, didn't you?
Yeah, we took a road trip out in there, and we accidentally, I think, found Matt Dwyer there. I think at the time we were looking for Chris Day because we heard that Chris Day was a 6-0 fighter. He was like a jiu-jitsu whiz, and he was just, I think he had like 2 knockouts, and the rest were all submissions, and I didn't think he had a decision at the time. We went out there to interview him and promote him, and we happened to see Matt Dwyer there as well, and that was with Stefan Lemercier at Havoc MMA, and he also recommended that we take a look at Matt Dwyer, and
they were a good team.
They were a great team, and finding those 2 guys, it helped propel us, I think, to where we are today. I think because at the time we had Justin Lansing set up to fight. I forget his name, from Spokane, Washington. Levi Alford. He was supposed to fight Levi Alford out from Spokane, Washington, and that fight fell through because Justin Lansing had an injury, and we offered Tak Sasaki to Chris Day, which was Chris Day moving. That was a great fight. It was a
good fight.
Yeah,
Tak was like a tank, man.
He was, and Chris Day moved up from 145 up to 155, but that really put us on the map. That whole event, we had stars from the start to finish.
Well, let's talk about Sarah McLeod versus Alicia Carrington.
That you go back and you look at that fight. Sarah McLeod was coming up from Team Hicks,
Yep.
Team Denarius. She had already had like a really good
She was
reputation
good.
of being like a good fighter. She was like the shining star on that team.
Yep.
She had potential to go pro, and I think she did go pro after
She
that.
did.
Yeah.
She moved to the States. I think I followed her for a while, and I think she's building her family now. But prior to that, she continued and she went pro, and she was doing really good. She was good.
Yeah, amazing job. And then having her fight Alicia Carrington, I remember her walking outside of the cage and then just like ripping her top open as she's walking forward. And I think she never really had any fight experience, Alicia, other than like maybe like street fighting.
She wasn't trained. Yeah.
Yeah, and she had Jerry Jonko in her corner as well. And
But she held her own though.
She
I mean,
did, man.
this wasn't a it was she held her own in there.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know. Well, people in attendance knew about the famous nipple incident, which was like halfway
Bit of a
through,
wardrobe malfunction.
halfway through the first round. Sarah McLeod had her top pop open,
Torn off, yeah.
Yeah, torn off, and then we had to
Well,
take her
Marcus
back up.
Hicks got in there with duct tape.
Duct tape.
And he just went.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing?
Wound it around, yeah. So that was a quick fix for him, and that was, I think, overall the whole event was just a gigantic learning experience for us.
It was crazy, man. I remember when we were, like, I mean, we'll get to this stuff and we'll talk about it. But for us, setting up pipe and drape around the cage at that time was an ordeal, man. Like we had. John had brought probably half of his family there to help out. So we had all these guys running around. We didn't know how to set the pipe and drape up so that it actually, this hexagon in the middle, it makes it awkward for the pipe and drape to go around.
Yeah.
And we have all these guys who are there to help. But we can't exactly give them directions because we have no idea
what was going
the
on.
hell
Right?
we're
It was a
doing.
learning experience
Just
for
trying
everybody.
to figure it out.
Even the cage setup too as well. I think because we have those camera perches, we have 3 camera perches. Only 2 of them got set up that day. We didn't have enough resources to like lift the posts up and have the holes in the correct spots and stuff. And we were just like, just leave it and we'll make do with what we have. And at the time, I mean, we made do with what we have. And again, that was a learning experience. But for us, I think our goal immediately was to have a huge like UFC style event. I think when we talked to Jay, or his first like idea was to have a gigantic pro card somewhere, or like at least have it in Vancouver, and then feature somebody like Dennis Kang on the card, have him fight like a big name as well, and then just have a huge sellout crowd. But fortunately or unfortunately for us, we just had to work with the amateur fighters in BC, and then we kind of learned our way there, and that was kind of it for the first night. I remember the lead up to that was just days of like working like straight,
crazy.
like
no sleep.
Yeah, no sleep.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
And then at the end, after it was all over, after everything got put back into the vehicles and stuff, and after we'd finished wrapping up, like we go over to Jay's place and then just hang out for a bit. And I remember Chris Day and Matt Dwyer there, but I just like closed my eyes and that was it. We just I couldn't.
It was nuts, man.
Yeah, there was a lot of time and
It was
energy put
nuts.
into those things, and I think the very first event was like a wake up call to us that we had to like get our shit together.
We got to step it up. And I mean, for me, I flew in, right? I wasn't in Vancouver. I flew in for the event to help out, and I was like, this is nuts. Like, we cannot continue doing this at this rate. We got to figure things out and try and do it a little bit more systematically. Yeah. Because it was a logistic nightmare, right? From setting up the cage, from getting everything there, every aspect of it that you take apart and look at right now, based on the experience we have of the 50 events, every single aspect of it was a mess. But the thing that was amazing was that the event got like sold out. It was by invite only. It was packed right away. Like there was no room. And people were enjoying themselves, right? I remember every single person in the crowd was having a blast. They were loving the fights. The fights were good fights. So, despite the fact that it was so difficult for us to pull it off, I think we get the experience for the fans was a good one.
Yeah, and kudos to like Jay and John.
Jay and John, they worked their butts off.
They worked their butts off to make that thing happen.
To promote. I mean, for us, for you and I, it was more of an operational nightmare to get in there and try and figure stuff. But those guys, man, they worked tirelessly leading up to the event, you know, trying to push the fights, trying to get this thing, all the legalities that you were talking about.
Yeah, there was a lot of red tape because of dealing with the city, and there was no real regulation for MMA in the city at the time. So for them to kind of get that going, they basically set up mixed martial arts in BC at the time, which led up to our next event. So we'll keep the ball rolling with that first event. We get amazingly the River Rock Casino and Richmond, British Columbia. That's like the crown jewel of.
That was a win for us.
That's a win for us. Yeah, getting that venue was a huge win, and I remember, man, we had all the big names of like mixed martial artists that were like in the amateur level at the time in BC coming to fight for us. After that first event, everyone knew that we were.
The buzz was out there.
The buzz was out there. We were like televised. We had like cameras. We had like those big screens at the events. We had the biggest names.
The promos.
The promotional stuff. All that work that we did to like put into those first event, it paid off because everyone wanted to come back.
We gave a big chunk of money to Children's Hospital.
Yeah,
right?
the very first event I think Jay had done like a lot of extra work on the side to give a large sum of money. I think about like $8,000 to the BC Children's Hospital Foundation, and to just help make awareness that mixed martial arts athletes in British Columbia weren't just meatheads. We were actually giving back to the community.
We're still trying to do that, aren't we?
Still giving back, And I think on the second event that we had, which was Battlefield at the River Rock, BFL 2, we had the exact same thing, except this time it was a larger donation of about $10,000, which was a huge win for us as well. And a huge win for like the mixed martial arts community. But just keeping the ball rolling with that, the first event was great. The second event was even greater. I think having the headliner, which was Chris Day, coming back again, and this time he was facing
Gary, right?
Gary Mangat, and those two guys, they have the potential to be huge stars, and they are huge stars, man.
Yeah, they are, man.
They're
Gary's fought internationally.
He's fought internationally. He's represented by the exact same agent as Conor McGregor. So he's on the UFC radar. He gets like one more fight, one more win, and he's in the big show. Yeah. And Chris Day at the time, he'd only like lost once out of 6. So one loss, six wins, but his only losses have come in Battlefield Fight League, right? So he was the headliner. I believe the crazy thing was that we had the welterweight tournament.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So we had Matt Dwyer fight Jacen Brooks, and then Sean Zubor fight Nick Austin. Yeah. And seeing Matt Dwyer and Jacen Brooks fight at that first event or the second event, those two guys.
Amazing,
those two guys are. If Jacen Brooks would have continued on, he would have
made it to
the UFC for sure. No doubt about it. So after, we're just skipping ahead to the future. After like Jacen Brooks won his second pro fight, or his first pro fight against Levi Alford with a huge head kick, it was featured on Inside MMA. He just lost interest in the sport. I think because it wasn't a money-making thing, and he went to work out in Calgary or in the oil fields and stuff, and he's making a ton of money right now. But if he would have continued on,
he would have made it.
He would have actually, I think, made it before Matt Dwyer.
Possibly,
he would have been possibly the world champion at the time, and we would have given him the push that Matt Dwyer got.
We would have been promoting him rather than Matt.
We would have been promoting him, and then I'm pretty sure Matt Dwyer as well would have made it to the UFC as well. But those two guys, having them match up against each other that early. Man, you're seeing like
it was
Gretzky
high
and
caliber.
Gretzky and Lemieux back in like their OHL days or like whatever the WHL days. So seeing those two guys fight, And man, that was a really good fight. That was probably the fight of the year in our first year. Maybe not fight of the year, but it was pretty high up there.
It was a good fight, and I remember we had our Waynes outside in the casino.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So these guys. Oh my God, man! I remember
having fighters show up for the fights, for the weigh-ins, and then they kind of show up whenever they
with
feel
their
like it.
teams and stuff. They'd show
Whenever
up
they
just
feel like
whenever
it.
they wanted to. Yeah.
Having trying to organize a group of like 30 fighters, 30 amateur fighters
Yeah.
that don't know the thing about like being professional yet, and trying to get them organized and getting their personalities in check
And we were
as well.
filming. We were trying to do like
yeah.
with UFC
yeah.
thing where we're
We're trying to do things live.
live stream the thing back
because
when nobody live streamed live.
Yeah, because we wanted to do it. We had a vision of like doing things great, regardless of what anybody says at the time. We were doing things that nobody else was trying at the time.
Yeah.
We were setting ourselves apart completely from everybody else because we were trying things that nobody else was willing to try.
We were working extra hard at it. This
Day
was
and
not. It was not easy.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Just I forgot about having those weigh-ins outside.
It was
the
nuts.
outside the.
The first one was in downtown at some pub. I don't remember where it was. The
On
second
Granville.
one on Granville.
Yeah.
It was just ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
And then for the second event, we did it at the River Rock outside by the
just the entrance.
just the entrance, right?
Yeah.
And I remember very well that we were trying to live stream this thing, and I was looking at like analytics and whatnot, going, man, people are going nuts. Like these guys were just waiting because so and so hasn't showed up.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, and the UFC when they do their events, they have the guys already ready. They have people shuttle
they've got
them in.
staff, right? For us,
They
it's
got-
like the
yeah.
three of us trying to run around and get
People don't realize, like how organized a company like the UFC is, and like how much money they have to like pay people to like
To spend,
check
yeah.
on these fighters and make sure that they're on weight, and then they bring them from their like hotel to the venue. So
make
they
sure
can
they're
weigh in.
on weight. Yeah.
And they have they pay people to do that, and then for us, we're just a very mom and pop like organization.
Yeah.
We're just
Very lean. Right?
people, a very small team of people that is just willing to like do all this extra work to get this thing to make it look the way it looks. And we didn't have a ton of money, but all we have is heart.
Yeah.
And I think that's really
Passion
pumped.
driven, right?
Yeah.
It's all passion driven. I hear this all the time where they don't say, the guys who know our company now don't say this a lot, but I used to hear it a lot, and it used to really bother me that like they thought that, oh, these guys are making all this money and they're not paying out and this and that, and I'm like, motherfucker, like
Yeah.
what are you talking
Do
about?
you guys
Like,
know? Yeah.
I'm like flying in from the States, staying up 3 nights in a row to get this shit done. We're not making money.
Yeah,
we're
we're not
just
making anything.
we're just it's all of us is like the passion of helping these guys out, getting the fights out, getting this going,
Yeah. And then the night of the fights, probably one of our most successful nights. I think
Yeah.
also because we had some of the biggest names in
Yeah.
BC at the time. Having them come out, I think Jeremy Kennedy, who had his first fight either on that card or on the next one after.
He wasn't on the second
He
one.
was on the third one.
Yeah,
Man,
but-
that third one was an oversellout. So we had
But
to
see,
sell
that
it plus-
second one though was the first time we saw Adam Santos.
Oh yeah.
who ended up
Santos, yeah.
Adam Santos, who
That was that
ended up
big heavyweight fight. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was our first taste of him.
He
and-
fought Tristan King.
Yeah, that
And
was
he
a great
knocked him
fight.
out. Yeah.
That was a great fight. Yeah,
Yeah.
both of those guys, amazing. Adam Santos, obviously, he hasn't had a fight in a while, but
No, but he's a
he had
beast, man.
He's a
that
beast.
guy.
He has the potential, I think, still, if he wanted to get back into it, to
Yeah.
go even further than what he's gone.
Well,
already.
he's just like Jacen Brooks,
Yeah.
He went on, he became the champ, and he decided that I'm gonna go out, get married, get a job. He's a firefighter now, and he's a very well-rounded person, and like that's another thing, misconception about MMA. People think that these are meatheads, like you said, that don't have a life and whatever. It's not true.
Yeah.
Some of these guys are the smartest people you'll meet, the nicest guys you'll meet, and we know firsthand because we're working with. Sure, there's some rough people out there as well, but Adam Santos is an example of one of those guys who just came through, did his thing, dominated for as long as he did.
Yeah.
I mean, Adam, the only time I really saw him show any weakness is when he went against Arjan, and Arjan now has made it to the UFC. So
Yeah.
that shows you the caliber of competition that he can hang with,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and that was, I think, Adam's his only loss.
Probably, yeah. I
Oh
don't
no, he
remember.
lost once on a different event, but yeah, that was his only pro loss, and yeah, he could keep going if he wants. So BFL 2, that was another thing that people aren't aware of is I think the very first event we had a production team. We hired a production.
That's right, yeah.
From Vancouver here, and we gave them a second shot. They did the same kind of level of quality that we were expecting, but I had to do like a lot of the extra work. So I mean, I was like staying up late, not only just to do the promotional videos, but all of the graphics. I had to come up with like all the designs for like the posters.
Yeah.
We had pamphlets that we would hand out with people's names on it that we had to make sure
The
that
programs,
we
right?
get right like a day or two before the fights happen.
Because everything falls through, right?
everything falls through. Yeah, at the time
Things change on the fly.
we don't know what's going to happen, and somebody doesn't make weight, or someone
Or the
like,
commission doesn't allow them to fight.
they don't even show up.
They don't
That's
show
the
up,
thing.
that's right,
They don't
they
even
don't
show
even
up.
show up.
So we're expecting a crazy fight to happen, and the fighter doesn't even show up, and then
And doesn't even let you know about it
we're
necessarily.
scrambling. Yeah, we're scrambling. So for us to have to do all that extra legwork and then have something like that fall through,
Yeah,
it kind of breaks
brutal.
our heart. It
Yeah.
breaks our heart a little bit because, I mean, I put in like a lot of extra hours to
Yeah.
make sure that those things happen, and it falls through. So I mean, it's just as, you know, bad for the heart for a fighter that had to have his fight fall through.
canceled, yeah.
Just for me as well, because I had
Because you
in
put
extra
so
hours
many hours of
to
work
make a
into
video
it.
for
Yeah.
him and like go do an interview, or we had to like drive out to Nanaimo or like
Penticton or whatever,
yeah, or Kelowna or whatever, just to get these guys interviewed and try and make them look good, and have to get them to say something that's really like
People
captivating.
who've never done
would
interviews,
wanna
never
watch-
seen a camera in front of them like that.
Yeah. So for us to do all the extra work at the time and to have those fights fall through, it's really kick in the pants. Yeah.
Yeah. Before we leave this event, another fight that was a good one on the second card was Caleb Stearns.
Oh yeah.
We had him on that. He fought Nick Hinchcliffe.
Nick Hinchcliffe,
Yeah.
and it wasn't really a real fight
Yeah.
per se, because it was
Because it wasn't allowed or
no,
something.
it was
right?
a jiu-jitsu fight.
It was a grappling,
jiu-jitsu
yeah.
grappling competition,
Yeah.
which at the time was our all that we could do with Nick or Hinch,
Yeah.
Nick or Hinch, Caleb,
Caleb
or Nick at the time. So it was a way for us to kind of sneak these superstars onto the card without having them actually fight. And I think at the time people were yelling like punch him or something,
They
because
didn't.
they didn't understand
know.
the rules.
I mean,
yeah.
despite the fact that we explained it,
And we announced it beforehand, yeah, that it was just a grappling competition.
also who was our ring announcer for this one?
I think it was
'cause
Don Andrews. I think it was Don
I
Andrews.
think Don
at
had
the-
come on board for this
he
one,
had
right?
just come on board for us.
The
and,
first one was rough. I remember whoever we had for that first
Oh
one
yeah,
was kind of
yeah.
rough.
I remember because I had recognized the person that we hired at the time, and
Yeah.
he was from casting. He was just an actor, a local
Just an
actor and
actor,
stuff.
yeah.
I'm not sure where we found him from, but we didn't use him again, unfortunately.
Yeah, it
He
was
a good,
rough,
he's a
yeah.
good guy and stuff, but he just wasn't.
This wasn't his thing.
This
I mean,
wasn't his thing. Yeah, a good voice and stuff, but
Yeah.
he wasn't cut out for it. Yeah,
But so that was the start of Don Andrews as
that
well.
was the start of Don Andrews. God bless him. Yeah,
Great
Don
addition
Andrews.
to our team at that point in time. Yep.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then I think who else was there? Steven Seagal made an appearance.
That's right.
Steven
That's
Seagal
right. He
was
sat
there.
cage side.
Yeah, he sat cage side because he was filming something up here, and he happened to be cage side at the event, and having a star here as well. It's kind of
He enjoyed the fights, man. I remember he had those yellow shades on, and the girls were on in his lap.
yeah,
and
adding
everything. It was like-
credibility to us, enjoying our show. So I mean that really meant a lot for us to kind of have names or stars and people coming to watch our events. And that Gary defeated Chris Day that night, split decision. It was a close fight, another close fight for Chris Day. He lost his first one at BFL 1 by split decision. number 2. So that's 2 losses in a row for Chris Day under our banner. And the thing is, man, I love Chris Day.
Oh
I
my
remember,
God.
like, we have so much like pride for that guy. We went and like traveled all over like to like Kelowna to go interview him and stuff. And then
Yeah.
for his career so far to not pan out the way we thought, because we thought Chris Day would make it to the UFC because
Yeah.
he had such potential.
Yeah.
But his first fight he lost against a guy that was bigger than him. Second fight he lost against Gary Mangat, a little bit smaller than him, but he was equally skilled. So they were both equally skilled. It was just a split decision win for Gary.
It's tough, man. Like when because you see these guys grow, right? You see him grow, and a lot of times I'm sitting there watching these fights going, I almost don't want either one of them to win, you know, or either one of them to lose, you know. It's really
people
heartbreaking.
Don't know. People don't know that we actually have like
relationship
with them, because we've seen them grow from the start. We've seen them grow from the very first event to getting up to the pro ranks or going beyond our pro ranks into the UFC, and to see them, there's a lot of pride in that, because we're pushing them just as much as we're pushing ourselves, and that's an amazing thing. So kudos to those guys for making it up to the next level. So that's BFL 2. The winners of the tournament, the welterweight tournament that we had with Nick Austin, Sean Zubor, Jacen Brooks, and Matt Dwyer. So Jacen Brooks and Sean Zubor, they both won. They were headlining the next event. And then I remember that video that I made for Zubor and Brooks, I think it was like the best one that I've ever made. And it was it told a story. It had like a little bit of an arc and stuff, and it was just
it was like a mini movie.
A mini movie. Those guys, they were really good at talking. They both had footage, which was difficult because we didn't have to create. We didn't have to create something. We had Jacen Brooks dominating in his first fight, really a dominant performance against Matt. Not dominant. It was a split decision, I think. But he had an amazing performance against Matt Dwyer, and it was a great fight. And then
you had footage to go with.
Footage to go with, and we didn't have to create something from scratch, which was
from
nothing, which was what we were doing at the beginning. And to have those guys facing off, we were able to build up something, which was really great. So having them being, Sean's really great at speaking.
He is.
He's really great at speaking, and Jacen is really good at speaking as well. So having those guys headline the event, man, it was fucking killer, dude. It was so killer. Having them headline the event, and that was the event that really set us off.
That was, that's
it really set us apart, man. That was an oversold crowd. I think it was sold out beyond
Isn't
capacity.
that the one where we got into trouble for having too many people in
Yes. Yeah, it was. So the people that we had on there, just debuting stars that we had on there, Ash Mashreghi.
Oh, dude.
Fight Jonathan Dubois.
That's the first time we saw Ash,
First time we saw Ash.
Okay, so this guy walks in. He walks in at the weigh-ins. I'd never seen him before, right? He walks in with Ahmed Khatib. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this guy, he's a beast, right? He just walks in there, scary-looking guy. I've never seen him before. And he like slapped somebody on the ass or something.
That's his personality. The thing is, he walks into a room and he has like a mesmerizing personality. It's kind of like Vanderlei Silva. He had the Vanderlei Silva look.
He's changed now, though. He at that point in time, Ash was he had this different look and different energy about him. I love the guy.
Yeah.
He used to be very intimidating at the beginning.
And that was sort of the character. The thing is, he's still intimidating. I mean, at the time, though, he didn't have any losses on his record.
Yeah.
I think
this was the first time I think we saw him, right?
I think, and man,
and then
intimidating,
and then Justin Lansing was his debut. Second event, or no? Is it his debut?
I think it was his second event.
I think it's his second event. But he walked in, if you remember, with that epic music.
Yeah.
And he's got this aura around him walking into the cage, you know, and his
personality shone through it as well.
His personality was like, so we were already between Jacen Brooks, Sean Zubor, Ash, Justin Lansing, Chris Day. We're already building
these stars.
Like, there's stories to tell for BFL fans who've seen one and they're starting to see, okay, these guys. Well, I want to go in and see what the story, how the story unfolds for this guy, right?
Yeah, they were getting a taste.
And Cam,
Achilles fought again.
yeah,
Jeremy Peaver fought Hans Pangelinen, and that was the fight that opened the main card of our event.
Yeah.
And man, hearing that walk-in music that Peaver had, man, that was exactly like a UFC event.
Yeah.
And hearing the crowd, I mean, it was a
roar,
sold-out
yeah.
Everyone was like just freaked out. And then Hans comes in with all his energy and stuff. He was energetic. He tried to get the crowd up going, and Hans won, right? Yeah, Hans won that fight. It was great. First time seeing Jared Cornelison. Jared Cornelison fought in the undercard, so I remember seeing him for the first time.
Yeah. Well, Cam fought on that.
Yeah,
card,
Cam
right?
DeLorme fight
Jeremy Kennedy.
Jeremy Kennedy, yeah. And I remember just being exposed to Jeremy Kennedy again for the first time because we went to interview Brooks at his camp.
Yeah,
and then Jeremy was fighting out the same card, and then
West Coast BJJ.
Yeah,
right?
West Coast BJJ, and at the time Jeremy Kennedy, he didn't have any experience talking on camera, so
he was
it was
a
so
kid.
hard.
What was he, 16 years old or
17,
something? Right?
Yeah, 16, 17.
He couldn't. We had to sneak him in there, didn't we?
Well, we can't say that. Yeah. We can't say that on camera. But yeah, we had to do some extra work to get Jeremy Kennedy in the
But
event.
Cam actually beat him.
Yeah, Cam did. It was a split decision.
Yeah,
I think. But Cam, he beat him.
Cam
and
beat him.
yeah, our first experience getting exposed to Jeremy Kennedy, and who knew, right? At the time, we didn't know that.
Do you
Jeremy
know what?
Kennedy,
That was sort of the start of the, if you can call it, the West Coast BJJ era, right? I mean, these guys were just.
They had a great team.
Yeah, you talked about that Team Havoc coming in, and kind of those early events, and then later events. West Coast BJJ dominated for such a long time, and these guys were a good group of guys, good bunch of training partners around each other. Don Whitefield at the head of.
He was like Phil Jackson at the time.
Oh my God!
The guru,
Cage side,
the guru of coaching, because every fighter that he had on these events at the time, they were winning, and he just.
He's such a good coach.
He's such a good. I mean, he was like a wizard for everybody, and that was actually the start between. Once West Coast BJJ had all these wins on the record, we started keeping track of
that's right.
records, of the camp records, and it gets competitive, right? So we have established camps that have great fighters, and then it becomes like a competition, not just between the fighters but also their camps as well. Yeah. And we still keep the records and stuff, and it's still competitive. But West Coast BJJ at the time, they were the number one team, I think, in the.
They were the number one team for a very, very long time,
and we weren't really exposed to teams with big names like Toshido or anything like that at the time. We just had mostly amateur fighters, and I think a team like Toshido, they only worked with professional fighters outside of BC or not in Vancouver for sure. They weren't sending pro fighters out here, so we didn't have the chance to get exposed to them. So that main event, Sean Zubor, Jacen Brooks, I think he beat him in the first round and won our first championship. Yep. And I think at the time, we weren't as organized. He won
by a triangle choke in the first round.
Inverted triangle choke. Yeah. He had him in a triangle choke from the top, and or no, he had it from the bottom or whatever. But Jacen Brooks. That's the second time. The first time he put that thing on, that inverted triangle choke where he gets it from the top. Second time he did it was when he fought Ash, but we'll get to that in a minute. Seeing Jacen Brooks, and that was his rise to stardom, and he was unstoppable at that point. Right?
That event was the beginning of so many careers, right? These guys is starting to come out, the story's starting to get told, people are starting to recognize the names.
Yeah.
It was definitely an important event for us.
And we had the ball rolling for ourselves. We had the ball rolling. We had a great team. We had also established live pay-per-view at the time. Not live pay-per-view, but live announcing and stuff at the time. So we Jay asked me to go and find our announce team, and he heard about someone named actually our current guy, Craig Nielsen. So he heard about Craig Nielsen. He heard he's really good, and he wanted me to find a complimentary person. So at the time, I went out and I like handpicked somebody. So I went to a school, and actually my school that I used to go to, Columbia Academy, it's shut down right now. But at the time, they had an audio production program, or like an on camera whatever broadcast host. And one of the persons that they had there was Darcy McBride. And I went down and I went to talk to him personally. I said, look, I heard you're really interested in the sport. I heard you're really good at talking. I want you to come down to my studio. We'll have you do like a quick test and stuff. And I think that was before BFL2. We had him and Craig doing the announcement at BFL2, and then BFL3 came along. They were still doing it, and they were like really good. I was just mirroring everything after the UFC. So Craig Nielsen was our what's the guy's name?
Mike Goldberg.
Mike
right?
Goldberg.
Goldie.
Craig Nielsen was our Goldberg, and then Darcy McBride was our Joe Rogan. And I mirrored it. Because I work in casting, man. Those guys were exactly like what we were supposed to have.
That's
so
right.
I wanted to make sure that we were keeping the same quality.
We just didn't get Darcy to shave his head yet.
Yeah, he didn't shave his head at the time, so he had a lot of. I mean, he was green. He was green at the time. Yeah. He never had the kind of experience on camera, or like being I think he was like a DJ or like an artist at the time, and like he was doing live shows and stuff as well, but he never had live broadcast experience, and this was like him being exposed to something huge. This is like
this was big, right?
Yeah, just dumping a kid in like a pot of candy and letting him go to town, and he actually did like a really good job for this being like his first couple events, and he's been with us ever since. That was one of our biggest events at the time. And the thing is, people don't know, we always wanted to do stuff that was different from everybody else. And our main suggestion was to do something that nobody else had done before, which was a fight card 1 week apart from each other, right? So who's ever done that? I mean, the UFC doesn't really do that. I mean, they might do it now, but they were never doing it back then.
No.
Nobody in mixed martial arts is doing an event back to back like that, and that was our goal. So we had the two biggest casinos, I think, in town. One was River Rock Casino, and then there's the downtown one, which was
the Edgewater Casino.
Edgewater Casino, yeah, and that
and
was our first.
Edgewater had its own challenges. I mean, this wasn't an easy show to set up.
It wasn't a huge venue. There was just enough room for the cage and just enough room for us to seat all the people in there and just have a few extra seats around the cage to kind of showcase what's happening. And
we have literally no time to recover.
No.
Like, this is come out of that event, jump in. So we were already setting up for the next event.
Back into another one, and because of how much time there was in between there, I mean, we're still working around the clock to kind of make these things happen. So, again, interviewing fighters, fights fall through. We got to get, like, other fights lined up.
Pretty much a week, 10 days of no sleep, nothing else, eat, breathe,
MMA.
Battlefield.
Yeah, Battlefield MMA. And at the time, we had two major sponsors. I think one was Nando's Chicken.
Yeah.
Man, we love Nando's Chicken, okay? People at the time don't realize how good Nando's is. They were our sponsor, and they gave us like some coupons and stuff for chicken. So whenever we wanted chicken, we could have it. And I remember there's actually a Nando's, like, that's a couple blocks away from here. And we just show up with these, like, coupons. And the guy's like, you guys are working on another event again. And we're like, yeah, we want some chicken. And then the other sponsor was Tap Out. Tap Out energy drinks. And I remember them dropping off this huge cart of
like
of
a
Tap Out
crate
energy.
of it almost.
More
right?
than one crate. So
Oh
we
my
had
God.
multiple crates. And I remember my back electrical room was just stacked all the way up.
Filled to the top.
Filled to the top with all these different types of energy drink. And I remember like staying up or like just drinking them for
Just
like breakfast,
chugging.
lunch, and dinner. That was my
Between chicken and tap out.
Yeah,
It's like,
that's
that's
my
what
regimen.
kept us alive, right?
That was my regimen. Yeah. So tap out and Nando's chicken, and that was amazing. That's really what kept us going at the time as well. Was those two sponsors. So yeah, putting on those events like back to back, and then getting set up at the Edgewater Casino.
Edgewater.
Yeah, having a huge headliner again, because we already knew that Matt Dwyer was going to be a star. Seeing him fight Jacen Brooks, seeing the two of them go,
You
like
could
head to
tell.
head. You could tell.
You could
Yeah.
tell he has potential.
Yeah.
and
Yeah, his striking was like the big thing. I think that was amazing for us.
Well, I
at the time.
think
We saw his jiu-jitsu was really good,
Yeah.
but his striking, because he was working with Stefan Lemercier at the time.
He
So
also, from the get-go, he knew how to use his reach, right?
Yeah.
He kept guys at the end of his punches, and you knew the kid has potential. He was young, he was still kind of finding himself, and like you could tell over time how he's, even in interviews and whatnot, he was just kind of settling in and finding who he is and everything. But in the cage,
Personality was coming out. Yeah.
he was coming together, but in the cage, you knew from the get-go, like you said, his jiu-jitsu is great.
Yeah.
He had that jiu-jitsu base, but with his striking, he just knew, like, some people are taller and lengthy, but they just don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
But this kid from the get-go, you could see that he knows how to keep guys out there and do a lot of damage and not take a lot of damage, right?
And then he had a headliner fight. He was fighting against elusive Yusuf Jai, and Yusuf also had like a really great reputation as well of being a really great striker. He
came out of Revolution.
Revolution,
right?
and
Yeah.
Revolution at the time was probably one of the biggest fight camps.
Oh,
in,
it still
in
is.
BC. It still is, but at the time, I mean, they had that gym plus that other gym that they had, which was the Fighters Only one, and they were just this army of really
Killers,
amazing
man.
killers. Yeah. So really great fighters. I think in the main event it was Matt Dwyer versus Yusuf Jai.
Yeah.
The co-main event, our first introduction to.
Wait, so third round, Matt Dwyer
Oh yeah,
hits Yusuf.
crazy.
Oh,
That was
God.
like the opening. So at the end of the second round, the fight was pretty close, and then Matt Dwyer. Actually, no, it wasn't extremely close. You could
They were
see that
going
Matt
back
Dwyer.
and forth,
Yeah,
yeah.
Matt Dwyer was still like in getting I think the better of the exchange. But I remember like seeing stuff like his head movement. You were seeing him like move around like these really unique ways, and his striking was really good. And you could see he was throwing these huge uppercuts and stuff. And he had Yusuf backed up. And then the third round comes around, and he gets him up against the cage, and then he was just. I think he landed. The first one was an uppercut. The second one was a like a hook
a
and
hook or
stuff. He
something,
knocked
yeah.
his mouthpiece out, and Yusuf was on the ropes, and he was like reeling, and he wasn't able to recover. And I think the referee stopped the fight, waved it off. Yusuf, I think he pointed down to his mouthpiece at the time because he wanted to get it back in his mouth, but the referee waved it off, and that was it.
Enough, yeah.
And I think that was like our exposure to Matt Dwyer, seeing like how good he is and how good he can be, and that was like his shining moment. I think
It was a good fight.
It was a great fight.
Good fight. And the
Beautiful.
thing with the thing with Edgewater that was different that I noticed. This was the first time we were in Edgewater. It was a smaller room, and when it's full, like our events are, you can really hear the crowd.
Oh yeah,
So I remember when that fight ended, just the roar in the crowd was nuts.
it was nuts. Yeah, and then also our first exposure to Micah Brakefield, and he was fighting Andre De Silva.
Andre De Silva.
People don't know that Andre De Silva. They see him now. They didn't see him like
Oh my
5,
God.
7 years ago when he was a monster.
It was a beast, man.
That guy was.
I remember he was standing in the in the cage, like when at the weigh-ins, we did the weigh-ins inside the Edgewater show theater thing, right? In the front of the cage. I remember at the weigh-ins, he's standing at the door of the cage. I'm like, what the fuck? This guy is like filling up the gate of the cage.
He's massive.
So big.
He was
right?
over 200 pounds at one point, and then he had to cut weight to make it down to 185 to fight Micah.
Yeah.
Micah
Out of Akshay Capoeira at that point.
Yeah,
in time,
Akshay
right?
Capoeira, yeah. And then I think at Micah, at that point, he wasn't involved in any fight camps camps. He
No.
and like Clay Gray, they were both blue chip wrestlers from like SFU or something, and he had a ton of like wrestling experience and maybe a little bit of a boxing background.
Just a little,
yeah. He wasn't even really exposed to jiu-jitsu at the time, but his wrestling was just killer at the time. Phenomenal, above and beyond what anybody had seen at that time. And it showed. And he
was big, man. Like his neck, Michael didn't have a neck almost, right, at that point in time.
And it showed. It showed at the time because
strong.
Because his wrestling was so dominant. He was able to get him in a dominant position. And I forget. I think he submitted him.
He submitted him RNC.
Yeah,
but this was like the classic striker versus wrestler matchup. We didn't know this guy comes in. He's huge, buff. He comes in, and you've got Micah, who's, you know, like he's a great wrestler. We know he's got this background and everything, and it's really exciting to watch these guys.
Yeah, and Clay Gray, which was his partner with Dungeon Grappling at the time, he also wrestler, but Alvarez fought him and beat him in the decision. Yeah. Clay Gray, that was I don't think he had very many fights as well. I don't think he's had any fights, and he just took that fight on short notice. He just wanted to take a fight, and I think letting guys just take fights at the time.
We could,
we
why
could do
not?
it.
Right?
There was no real commission at the time. Also, that was overseeing it. There was the Vancouver Athletic Commission, which wasn't really it wasn't really a commission at the time. It was just.
They were trying to protect the fighters.
Do what they could, but it wasn't really the way it was now. Yeah. It wasn't government regulated. It was just heads of camps that were no longer coaching fighters and stuff that were
involved,
overseeing it. And that was fight number 4.
This event was, speaking of West Coast BJJ, we saw David Kennedy for the first time as well.
David Kennedy fought. David Kennedy again, another future champion, and
really, really good guy.
Really great,
good
really
guy.
Great guy. He's humble. He didn't have an outgoing personality. Right? No. Very humble and stuff. And when he showcased his skills at the event, it was impressive.
Super talented, man. I mean, I still to this day want to see him back in there and fight because he was just so talented.
You know, it'd be so good as having all the former welterweight amateur champions all fight off in the tournament in a professional setting, and that would be like a killer card. That would be like an entire card because we have all these guys that are accomplished amateur champions, having them fight at a professional level in like a one-night tournament. Where
it would be really nice.
It's so good. Yeah, you would see a really high quality talent at that level.
Our welterweight pool has kind of always been pretty deep, right?
It's always been the deepest pool, I think, out of all of our divisions.
So Kennedy won that one in the first round, 46 seconds, man. Submission.
Yeah,
that's
fast.
Yeah.
He fought Jason Noble. I forget what he did, but he got him in the triangle real quick.
Yeah, triangle. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
What else did we have on that card? That was
Oren Hanscom. He fought Ryan Ince. This was our first exposure to another featherweight champion, future featherweight champion, Oren Hanscom.
Stu was on that card.
That was our first exposure to Stu Delarme as well.
Fought Ben Cote,
future welterweight champ. Look at all these guys that have all this talent at welterweight.
I mean, Stu's a grappling whiz, right? That
fucking genius, man.
Coming out of that camp, and he was, even to this day, he's doing awesome with his grappling. It was too bad with Cam and his loss and everything, but
Stu's good, man. Stu's good. He's really great at strategy. He's always comes out with a really great strategy, and he showed it against Ben Cote at the time. Yeah, and Ben Cote as well. He's
he was no slouch.
No slouch, man. That guy was a purple belt in jiu-jitsu under Marcus Suarez, which is
super smart guy.
Super smart. Yeah, the guy's
super smart.
Guy's a businessman. He didn't even need to fight. He was just coming out to do it just because he wanted to. Yeah.
But the thing that set him apart, I remember, I'll never forget Ben Cote. It was like, I gotta get my lawyer to look at these contracts. Like, dude, it's like
he's the only one that actually had a lawyer. Everyone else is like, I just wanted to sign my paper and I want to fight. Everybody else at the time, that's the way it was.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so Matt Dwyer, he showcased his skills and stuff, and then that set us up for the I think that was at the time, out of all of our fights, BFL number 5, which was 2 title fights at the time. So we
Yeah.
had Jacen Brooks, our first exposure to Ash Mashregi.
Yeah.
We brought in Ash and Jacen Brooks at the time to face off inside the cage.
Yeah.
We made a video of it. Those two were going to fight for the welterweight title at BFL number 5 in the main co-main event. That could have been a main event fight.
Easy.
Easily.
Yeah.
But instead, we had Gary Mangat and Cam DeLearn fight for the vacant
And what a
featherweight
fight that was, man.
vacant amateur featherweight title. And man, every time somebody steps up and fights for one of our titles, like those fights are fucking killer, man. They could be pro fights because the guys put in so much work and so much time and energy to bring themselves up to like a really high level of competition that, easily the championship fights could be pro fights because the guys put in the work to make it happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, you and I both know that Jay is really hard about like who he gives that kind of opportunity to. So they have to prove themselves. They have to show that they're willing to work their ass off.
Yeah.
They're not just gonna get in there and say, okay, I have a belt in this organization. I want to fight for your belt. No, he's always giving priority to the guys that have worked hard.
Yeah, guys that we also see the potential in to go to the next level. And every person that we've picked so far has been like a very good choice because they show the potential to go up, and a lot of them have. A lot of them made it past the amateur level to go to the professional level. Right. The guys that stick with it, that want to go past that, they go to the UFC.
They have been able to.
They've been able to go to the UFC. So BFL 5 Duel. I remember
Duel. That's right.
Duel, making a poster for that, man. It was
sick poster.
That was like one of the best ones I've ever made, and a lot of work put into that card as well. And again, at the River Rock Casino, having the same caliber of fights that we put on at the last time with BFL 3. Huge card for us, and we were exposed to a lot of stars as well at the time.
But that Ash and Jacen fight.
Man,
there was enough of a storyline already for Jacen Brooks and that kind of attitude that we just discussed, that Ash brought to the table. Yeah. There was enough animosity and everything built there. There was enough energy built that people could feel it, right? This isn't like, you're not talking about Vanderlei Silva that everybody knows and there's some like these fighters that are very well known. These are fighters that have just had a couple fights in their pocket, and they're coming up, and the stories are already building. And do you remember the face-off at the River Rock at the weigh-ins?
Every time,
between
man.
Ash and Jacen. Yeah. I'll never forget that.
Every time.
That was the very first time, Trevor, where I felt like, oh my God. They better not start out here.
Because they could have. They very easily could have. But Ash had the reputation at the time of like getting right up in everyone's face. Yeah. And he wouldn't back down. That's his way of like intimidating them or like getting in their head. And some people would like push back, but most of the time people would just be like stunned by this guy getting in their face. And he's such a big, strong personality that it's definitely intimidating. So seeing those two guys, like,
but Brooks at that time wouldn't back down.
He wouldn't.
He was in his face, just stayed there
because he's the champion at the time.
That's
and
right.
You can't. You have to step up and you have to represent. And you have to, show why you're the champ. And he did, obviously, that night. So, going back to the fight card, Adam Santos fought Rick Pierce, another great fight. He beat Rick Pierce. Rick Pierce, at the time, I forget where he was coming from, Team Bad Boy Outreach. So he had, like our Champions Battlefield podcast. Yeah. Rick Pierce came from a troubled background, used mixed martial arts to get himself...
to get out of it.
And this was his one big opportunity. He was taking it very serious because he wanted to fight Adam Santos for like a title, and he knew if he beat Adam Santos, he would get a title shot, basically. So he knew he took the fight very seriously. Unfortunately for him, he lost in the first round to Santos, and Santos at the time, he was just dominant.
Yeah, he has been, And then Jeremy Kennedy fought again. Yeah. He fought Oren, right?
Beat him, the unanimous decision.
Bryce and Stu got together. That was, like all these guys are still around, right? Yeah. They're still fighting, and they're...
Bryce has got a big fight for us on our next card, and he's fought for the title, two or three times, I think, so far.
Yeah.
And he came up short each time, but man, those fights that he puts on are fucking exciting, man.
That's right.
He doesn't give up. That's the thing. And then, so the co-main event, the big build-up for that, huge entrance for Ash Mashragi, huge entrance for Jacen Brooks. They get in the center of the cage. You know, people were just expecting this huge war, but Jacen Brooks is just fucking dominant. Dominant. Yeah, he got him to the ground. He did the same thing that he did to the last person he fight, which was Zubor, which is getting that over the top
the triangle.
Over the top of triangle, and
he was just striking him.
Yeah, just pounding him out, and Ash was tapping while he was hitting him. Yeah, so that was his first. That was Ash's first loss, but that was Jacen Brooks' hugest win at the time, because Ash's like persona, this mystique behind him, and that I remember people like rushing in the cage. That was either BFL 3 or BFL 5, but I remember like his whole team like rushes into the cage and like puts Jacen Brooks on top of his shoulders.
Well, that's West Coast BJJ, right? This was the team that just looked unbeatable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they just kept coming out, and the team just kept growing, and
it was huge seeing all those guys. And then seeing Brooks again defending his title. He was the only one at the time to ever defend their title. Huge fight. And then main event, Gary Mangat, him and Cam Delerm. So Cam just beat Jeremy Kennedy, who is in the UFC right now, right?
Yeah.
So Cam is riding that fight and going
he's
up
5-1. I think
5-1, going up against Gary Mangat, and man, I remember doing interviews with Gary at the beginning, and him not being able to talk. Yeah. Right? He couldn't like get through.
Nothing like today, right?
Nothing
where he's
like
doing
today.
Like movies and whatever.
He's doing so much promotions and stuff, and doing such a great job. But I think at the time, he wasn't able to like speak the way other people were doing it. He wasn't able to like be really confident when he was talking and stuff. And we'd had to put in like extra time with him, but we could see the potential in him as he was going. It was getting better. Each and every time his interviews were getting better, and each and every time his fights were getting better. Everything about him was getting better progressively. So you could see the progression from him from the very beginning all the way up to like where he was fighting for a title. And once he got that title shot, and once he won the title, because he won the title that night against Cam Delerm, man, it just skyrocketed his like personality, his confidence and stuff. After that, he was the first Sikh MMA champion in the world at the time. Yeah. I think in the world, right?
Probably, I don't know.
Probably, I think at the time. So he's the very first Sikh MMA champion. He was getting interviews with people from all over the place. People wanted to hear from him, and then that's how the ball got rolling for him.
That's how he started for him.
And he never defended he didn't have to defend the title. I mean, that was his like ticket to going up to the next level and be a superstar. Yeah. And that was it for him. And he, just after that.
Yeah, that's the event, in my opinion, that's the event where Gary was kind of born. Yeah. You know, he just came out of his shell and started to shine.
Yeah, he did. And the thing is, like, we'll probably talk to Gary at a later time,
yeah,
right?
we will, yeah.
But he didn't come from a mixed martial arts background at all. No. He wasn't involved in fighting at all. And then for him to, like, come into this sport.
Yeah, well, we'll get him here to tell his story, but I mean, he was an accountant or something. I think.
Oh my God, he'd never had a fight before, and for him to like come in and become the first Sikh MMA champion, and then to have all this stuff on his shoulders, and then for him to be able to like propel himself beyond that, because he's gonna make it to the UFC.
He will,
no doubt. Yeah, he's man.
He's got the determination, the hard work, the passion behind it, and he's got that resolve that you just know that he's gonna go far.
Yeah, he's settling into becoming a star, which is great. Now he's like rubbing shoulders with guys like Conor McGregor. I see him like in pictures with them all the time, which is awesome. Good for him, man. Good for him. So BFL 1-5, that was like the beginning chapters for the Battlefield career.
It was the launching pad, right?
It was the launching pad, and the thing is, for us, man. we can sit back and look back at it now and just like weigh like a sigh of relief, right? Because
It was stressful.
it was stressful, man.
Yeah.
People don't know like how stressful it was. I was also at the time I was building my other business, which we're in right now. It was at the very infancy as well, and also building this Battlefield business as well, and getting those two things going at the time. Man,
super stressful.
yeah, working day and night, and then day and night. It was crazy.
It's nuts, and the aspect of it that I guess we don't get to talk about is what Jay has gone through to put it here, right? He's kind of carried it on his shoulders. We talk about the operation aspects of it and this stuff, but the business aspects of it and fighting those battles to be able to do what we were able to do, you know, in terms of the ops and everything. Wasn't easy, man. I saw him stressed out and going through all these things. It hasn't been easy.
Dealing with fighters, first of all, is
that on itself
it's impossible for us to do it and like run this business, and for him to be able to take that stuff on his shoulders, deal with all these not saying like every fight camp is like a nightmare, but at the time it wasn't structured. It's not structured the way it was right now, and we were trailblazing right now to kind of make it look the way it is now. And at the time, Jay, man, he put in like a ton of work.
He championed it, man.
Yeah, he definitely did.
Carried it.
Yeah, and there isn't enough good things that we can say about the stuff that he's done to make this sport the way it is, because he's. We just did the operational stuff, but the business side and like going in and getting the River Rock Casino to host
against
us.
all odds, right? Like when I remember when we booked River Rock, we were all shocked. Like how the fuck did you pull this off, right? We were like
sold out too, sold out crowds, sold out.
Every one of them was sold out.
Twice, 3 times. BFL 1, 2, 3, and 5 were all sold out.
Yeah, and then to have those 2 shows back to back sold out.
Yeah. Crazy.
It doesn't make any sense, right?
Impossible at the time. So
kudos to him for sure for putting in all the work.
He did a really great job, for sure. And John was involved too.
John
John and actually Tony. Was one of our main guys as well. And having that group of guys together to make it the way it was.
John on a different level though, right? I mean, Tony was kind of like along with you and I helping out and stuff, but John, to begin with, you know, him and Jay kind of started this off, and you know, whether it was financially or however else John had helped out, it was a great help to get it off the
those 2 guys together, they made it the way it is today, and all those learning experiences that we learned off of those first events, it helped organize things the way it did. So 1 to 5 set the tone for 5 to 10 or 6 to 10. And 6 to 10 is where we're going to go off.
So we're going to have some fun talking about 6 to 10.
6 to 10, definitely.
People should tune in for sure, because there's a lot of...
Dude, we just talked for an hour and 10 minutes, right? That's a long time to talk about those things, but... we had a lot of fun. It was a lot of stress putting into those events, but it got better. It gets better, and it's still gonna get better even past our 50th event. So this is our little behind the scenes diary of the things that went on in BFL, starting from the beginning all the way up to BFL 5, and you're gonna hear more about that on our next episode.
Stay tuned.
Yep.